Good evening, folks. Everything new under the sun. I want to bring some of my thoughts to the table about Netanyahu, Israel, the riots, the trouble in Syria, and a potential strike on Iran. So, covering some articles from Debka.com, and it's a security intelligence website that produces a lot of interesting information from Israel. Now, of course, you've probably heard on other channels and on the news that there have been great riots in Israel, and there have been thousands upon thousands of people rioting, destroying things, police in riot gear, all sorts of things. And they're fighting and protesting this judicial reform bill that Netanyahu has put to the Knesset to vote it through. Now, as I understand, it went through the first reading. It has to go through a second and third reading. But the problem is, as I understand it, is that the judges, the judicial wing of the government, their judges basically elect themselves. So when a new judge is needed, the judges elect a judge. Now, what Netanyahu wants to do is he wants to reform it so that the government can pick the judges. Now, that's not unlike the United States, where the current administration can, if a judge is passes away or something, then the current administration, doesn't matter whether it's conservative or liberal, a Democrat or a Republican, whomever is in power at that time can then appoint a judge. And people go nuts about it, of course, because when Trump appoints judges, well, they're going to be conservative judges, and when Obama appoints judges, they're going to be liberal-leaning judges. And so when you put judges in power that can basically make all the laws and also pick all the judges themselves, select their own judges, you have a situation where they can quickly pack the court with people, with like-minded people. And that's what was happening, as I understand it, that basically it was a left-leaning court, and the government really had no way to control it or put people that they believe are more balanced or more conservative into the court. And I don't think there's neither side is good. When you have governments putting judges in, of course, they're going to pick someone, whether left or right, whatever side they're on. If you have judges picking judges, then of course they're going to pick people who they like, who are leaning towards whatever the majority is of the current set of judges. So neither situation is good. And the U.S., however, and Canada, likewise, is kind of similar, where there is some government control of the court system, of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't have complete and total control over the country, where in Israel, the Supreme Court has a lot of power. So that's kind of the gist of what is happening there. And Netanyahu has had to kind of step away and pause it, because the country, or at least the protesters, made it seem like the country was heading towards civil war. Now, there's a lot of supporters. Amir Sarfati supports this idea of Bibi Netanyahu basically allowing the government to install judges. It's at least a little bit better, because as you go back and forth between liberal conservative governments, they could then put their own judges in. Again, a little bit better than maybe the judges appointing themselves. Bibi says, so after a tense 10-hour delay, Bibi finally agreed Monday, March 27th, to hold back the contentious judicial reform bill until next Knesset session. So he put a pause on it. He wants people to basically go home, stop protesting, and maybe calm things down a little bit. The anti-reform protesters called off their day of disruption due on Tuesday. The general strike declared that his trade unions was canceled. Even flights going in and out of the international airport there were canceled because of the riots. They were everywhere. And if you watch Amir's video today, he explains what's going on as well. But Netanyahu said, "I am not willing to rend the country to shreds. We must remember that we are not facing enemies but brethren." Now, this reminds me of the passage of in the Bible where it speaks of Israel being at peace and a land of unwalled villages. And certainly they're not at peace now if you consider the protests and the political upheaval here. There's a lot of people on the left who hate Bibi. and he is the leader of a coalition government which has a lot of what Westerners might call some alt-right coalition partners, some really conservative orthodox partners in the coalition. Bibi is more center than kind of the right to, as some would call, extreme right folks in his coalition. But nonetheless, there's a lot of people who really hate that he's in power, hate him as a person, and so he's got trouble on his hands. There was a non-confidence vote that they did, but he won that. He got through that, just like Macron did. Survived the non-confidence vote. But that's what's happening with Bibi Netanyahu. And again, he was the one I was talking about a number of videos ago that said, you know what, the building of the third temple won't cause trouble, won't prohibit peace, won't limit peace. So we'll see. But apparently, the appointing of judges by the government is certainly going to take a piece away from the land of Israel. They're a divided people, and they don't have a single goal. It's by no stretch a Christian or a God-following nation. It's hugely secular. With Bibi Netanyahu is apparently poised to halt his government's judicial reform legislation, the meeting of coalition leaders Monday morning broke up in wild disorder, forcing him to postpone his statement. Meanwhile, spurred by the dismissal of Defense Minister Gallant, so this guy, this defense minister, he came out apparently while Bibi Netanyahu was away on a business trip. I forget where he was. But anyways, he came out and said, you know what, the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, needs to put a halt on this. And then Bibi came back and basically said, I can't trust you anymore, so I'm letting you go, basically fired him. But anyways, and so they're fighting. And so the other side of the other parties basically want Bibi to reinstate Gallant because before they're willing to talk. Monday morning, opposition leader Yair Lapid said, "This is madness. The government has lost its way. Reverse Gallant's dismissal and let's talk." And so this is an ongoing thing. There's great turmoil. There's huge division. There are so many parties in Israel. It's a wonder they can even elect. If you've been a follower of the channel, you know that they went through, I think it was 5 different elections in a short span of like 2 years, 3 years. I've lost count now. And Bibi keeps coming up, leader of the country so far. But many hate him, and many are trying to do him under. Many are trying to get him into jail and accuse him of illegal activities. Kind of sounds like Trump in the U.S. too. A lot of people hate him, and they're doing anything they can, dirty tricks, to get these people out of power, just to take them down, basically. Now, in Syria, there's interesting stuff happening as well. So there was an Iranian proxy bombing which killed a U.S. serviceman, or more than that possibly, and the U.S. started to do drone airstrikes. And this is kind of the first time in a while that the U.S., while they have a base there and they're kind of protecting oil fields, and that's a whole other story about taking oil that they don't own maybe. But they weren't actively fighting. But now they're actively fighting Iranian proxy folks. Iranian drones and U.S. fighter jets in first ever duel over eastern Syria. Now you talk about the Isaiah 17 destruction of Damascus, and you look at this flare up here. Is this a distraction from from Russia, Ukraine? Is this Iran basically starting something there in an effort maybe to hook the jaw of Russia and bring them in to deal with the U.S. and Israel once and for all? There is an agreement there between Russia and Iran. Iran is providing lots of flying Doritos drones to Russia. And so Iran would be silly to not be thinking about and attempting to exploit that angle of getting Russia into the battle and limiting the U.S. and Israel's movements in Syria so that Iran can get closer to its goal of wiping out Israel. Iran challenged the U.S. for their first gloves-off duel Friday, March 24th by hitting back at Americans for retaliating when their facility in East Syria was struck by armed drones operated by Iran's Revolutionary Guard and their proxy militias on the Syrian-Iraqi border. The military clash between Iran and the U.S. is unprecedented on Syrian soil. So this is a significant precedent, a significant escalation of the situation, and it possibly draws the U.S. into battle also against Iran, which could encourage them to then provide Israel what Israel needs to take out the Iranian nuclear threat. And currently, right now, the idea is that Israel hasn't struck Iran because Israel doesn't have refueling tankers. Now, to fly their jets over to Iran, take out all the nuclear sites and fly back, they couldn't do it on a tank. They need a refueling tanker. And the U.S. has apparently been holding this back because, of course, Biden administration doesn't like Israel. U.S. refusal to bring forward the KC-46 refueling aircraft holds back possible Israeli strike March 23rd, 2023. So this is a very current thing. And again, is this going to trigger the U.S. to say, okay, Israel, we want you to help us with Iran in Syria. Now it's a good time to go and take out the military threat of Iran. And here is a refueling tanker so that you can fly your jets, your F-35s and such, over to Iran and back. The Biden administration's refusal to accede to Israel's latest request for delivery ASAP. They want it ASAP. Why? Because Iran has enough nuclear material to make several dirty bombs and at least one or more nuclear weapons, and they have the delivery rockets to do so. But so they're looking for the delivery of this refueling tanker ASAP. KC-46 Pegasus military refueling aircraft sets back a potential airstrike for averting a nuclear-armed Iran. It is another hiccup in the U.S. Israel relations with the current Netanyahu government. So Netanyahu is conservative, Biden is liberal, of course, and they don't like each other. Biden has no interest in really helping Israel in this manner. It says Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin explained that Boeing can't meet this request now since its hands are full with U.S. Air Force orders. Why is that? Are U.S. Air Force orders taking all the space in terms of weaponry for Ukraine to battle Russia? The news coming out of the U.S. is that basically what U.S. is doing now is they're saving up weapons and ammunition to battle the main foe, which is in their eyes China. That's the real foe. That's the real enemy. So they don't want to spend all and waste all their ammunition and weapons, their good weapons, in Ukraine fighting Russia. They're happy to let Ukraine do that and Ukrainian soldiers be killed to battle against Russia. The main enemy of the U.S. is China, because they are the world economic superpower if once basically U.S. goes down. Well, Netanyahu and Gallant, who is fired now, underlined as pressing the first Pegasus delivery after Iran discovered enriching uranium up to 84% grade. And if they're at 84%, you know they're at 100%, or I guess it's 90 actually for a nuclear weapon that they need. 6 points up to weapons grade nuclear fuel. And so they're close, and they very likely are working on the weapon, hastily trying to put it together right now. And it's just a matter of time now before Israel strikes, or there's another a virus or cyber attack on Iran that we hear about, or mysterious explosions, who knows what. But this delay of this tanker, could be all rolled into it. And so again, the Isaiah 17 prophecy of the destruction of Damascus, and then Ezekiel 38 and 39, I think one happens before the other. Probably Isaiah 17 happens before Ezekiel 38 and 39, where the Russia Gog Magog comes down because of the hooks in the jaw, and comes to a country at peace. Now, they're not really at peace right now, but then it depends on your definition of peace. How much at peace do they need to be? Is that at peace from other nations? Maybe they take Iran out, and then they're at peace for a little while, and that's when Gog Magog marches, because they're now required to go in. Or is the U.S. and Israel doing stuff in Syria where Iran says, you know what, Russia, we were helping you with flying Doritos. Now you need to come help us and take out Israel. So all this stuff is ramping up. Wars and rumors of wars are popping up everywhere now. Stuff is going hot all over the world. We have economic collapse. We have famine coming down the pipeline very quick in terms of supply chains, and you know, they're banning the use of fertilizers everywhere. They're taking land away from farmers and preventing them from growing enough food in the Netherlands. You know, in all along with the idea of climate change and saving the earth. And so this is inevitable. It's all going to come down crashing around us. Humans are the cause of all the problems in the world. We create all our own problems when we're trying to fix other problems, instead of just having faith in Jesus Christ and asking for help to bring peace and to love our neighbors as ourselves, and to live in peace and harmony like we were originally intended to do. So those are the stories out of the Middle East. The important things, I think a lot of the other things are distractions, but they will significantly influence world events. But the Bible prophecies that are at the core are still centered around the Middle East, Israel specifically, and the battles that happen around there. So all the sideshows, the left stage, the right stage, all those things have to happen to set up the main stage, the center stage, which is Jerusalem, which is Israel, and that's ultimately where everything leads to. So pay attention to Israel, its government, its politics, Syria, Iran. These are where the big biblical end-time events are going to be erupting. And the pregame show, if you want to put it that way, is what we're seeing right now. This is just the beginning. The stuff that's going to happen, that has to happen in the lead up to the bigger wars described in the Bible. So, folks, thanks for watching. Keep your eye on Israel. That is the main event in the Bible. All the other things are sideshows, although important because they really lead to all the stuff that's happening in end time Bible prophecy. We'll see you guys in the next video.